essentially been gone for 15 years. Squilliam sparked a huge discussion on Twitter when he surprisingly appeared in a recent SpongeBob episode that made many ask, where did he go? And was his rivalry with Squidward that good? We'll go over that and much more, but who is Squilliam, for those who don't remember? Squilliam Fancyson is many things. Wealthy, arrogant, well-connected, but more importantly to us, he's Squidward's arch nemesis, and you couldn't have asked for a better debut episode within SpongeBob. Dare I even say, he may have a top 3 best debut episodes within the SpongeBob universe, because his first episode within the show is Band Geeks.
I hear you're playing the cash register now.
Sometimes. How's the unibrow?
It's big and valuable.
An easy favorite, he challenges Squidward to play his so-called band at the Bubble Bowl. An aspect of their dynamic I wish they kept was this high school glory part. Given Squidward has been directionless artistically and works at a fast food joint, keeping the stark contrast of the trajectories between Squilliam and Squidward post-band class would have been a great source of episodes and comedy. While we know of this goated episode already, tons of great memorable jokes, a nice progression of a bunch of wacky characters being in a band, and a great lead up to the big song.
That's his eager face.
This video will focus on Squilliam's contributions only. He was shocked to see the legendary performance that Squidward's band drummed up, and it seemed things were already looking rough for Squilliam. But don't worry, he get another shot when he returns in season 3. But at this point, we start to see cracks in his character. Squilliam returns as a fun episode, but would expose a potential problem with his character that we'll get to by the end.
Anyone can be a big shot in a hick town like Bikini Bottom.
Oh, is that so? Let's hear what you've accomplished since high school, Squiddy.
How about make you faint at the Bubble Bowl? Squidward is up 1 since Squilliam came back into the picture. As much as I love Band Geeks and this episode, what do they do, essentially? Well, we have Squilliam bragging, Squidward pretending to be something that he isn't, Squidward having to figure out a way to sell that illusion, and the result of that illusion. Squidward would have to run around and keep everything together as the collective sanity of the Krusty Krab would hang on by a thread. SpongeBob would have a total meltdown after forgetting everything except fine dining and breathing, which, if you're breathing manually right now, you're welcome. Mr. Krabs would be the chef, and oh my god, never let this man cook again in his life. Squilliam would show up and be surprised with how everything turned out. Unlike Band Geeks, this plan goes awry. And as funny as this is, we also have to remember that within Band Geeks, the band trained without Squidward. His training led to 2 people dying. So it only makes sense that his plan here fails too.
The horrible, sad truth is, I'm a cashier too.
Is that true?
Of course not. I'm filthy, stinking rich.
As mentioned before, this pattern checks out, and this doesn't bode well for the depth of his character compared to others. This is season 3, and other characters just had more depth, which made them more fun to see in more adventures than a tentacle measuring contest between Squidward and Squilliam. For context, Plankton would have a time travel episode, and we'd get to see his extended family. Barnacle Boy would turn on Mermaid Man, Mrs. Puff would go to jail, Mr. Krabs would have a midlife crisis, and SpongeBob and Patrick would have a child together. Meanwhile, Squilliam is essentially doing the same episode again. While you'll notice this pattern continue in the next episodes, let's focus more on the rivalry. We go from March 15th, 2002 to June 6th, 2008. We wouldn't hear from Squilliam at all. In season 6, we get the polarizing episode House Fancy, which, while it's known for one thing, would feature the most relaxed appearance from Squilliam so far. Squidward would be jealous that Squilliam is on a show that shows off his house, and he'd claim to have a much fancier house and 2 hours to prepare it as such. So as mentioned before, the pattern is simple. Squilliam bragging about his life, Squidward pretending to have something that he doesn't, Squidward having to find a way to sell that illusion, and we see what that result turns out to be. Well, in the grand scheme of hundreds of SpongeBob episodes, this isn't as repetitive as it seems in this video. When you look at what Squilliam was being written for, it begins to stick out quite quickly.
I'm not quite sure how to say this.
Go ahead, say it.
Squidward Tentacles, you seem to have ushered in an entire new era in house fanciness.
The fortunate aspect is that Squidward would end up having somehow the fancier home and being named House Fancy Prince of the Year, making the score 2-1. But maybe there was potential in this passive version of Squilliam as we explore the other season 6 episode he was featured in. While up to this point, Squidward would directly challenge Squilliam, this episode changes the dynamic and that would have disastrous results for Squidward in universe. This is another season 6 episode as mentioned earlier called Professor Squidward.
Aren't you the esteemed Squilliam Fancyson III, who we all came here to see perform tonight? If you were Squilliam Fancyson, I would offer you the high-paying and prestigious opportunity to come there and teach your very own music class.
I'm Squilliam Fancyson.
You see, Squilliam was going to be offered a job as a music professor, but Squidward would steal his identity to take the job, presumably because he feels like he deserves it more than Squilliam. However, SpongeBob and Patrick would treat him like Squidward, not Squilliam, which leads to his demise.
I don't suppose you two have anything to say for yourselves.
We're sorry, Squidward.
Yeah, we're sorry, Squidward.
No. Shh.
With Squidward arrested for, let me check my notes here, impersonating a genius, that brings the score back to 2-2. You start to notice a pattern, however these last two episodes set up a confusing end to their rivalry. This second to last episode in this arc has Squilliam win in the most unexpected way. Within season 7 we get the episode I Heart Dancing, an interesting episode that has Squidward sabotage SpongeBob's chances to perform well at a dance recital, presumably because he feels like he deserves it more than SpongeBob. Squidward would work SpongeBob to exhaustion and end up stealing his spot for the dance audition, blowing away the casting director enough to be immediately cast for the role.
You will be sorry you've made this decision.
I don't think you'll be sorry either, because you'll be dancing in Squilliam's show.
Considering Squidward's completely shocked and submissive expression here with the fact that I'm sure if he knew beforehand he wouldn't have wanted to dance for Squilliam, I would say this brings the score to 2-3 with Squilliam in the lead. So with one last major episode left, either we end this with a tie or Squilliam would have more episodes where he appears victorious than Squidward. The problem is, it's kind of both, depending on who you are. You may see it differently. The last major rivalry episode between the pair would premiere January 2nd, 2010, with the most infamous episode to appear in this video. It is the infamous Keep Bikini Bottom Beautiful, a mixed episode that has a share of extremists on both sides due to the persistent appearance of a cop character who shows up at the right times to catch someone littering, even in situations where contextually it wasn't that big of a deal as the cop made it out to be.
Let me help you out. There. That should get you started.
We'd learned that Bikini Bottom built a statue of Squilliam in honor of cleaning up Bikini Bottom in a week, to which Squidward would attempt to one-up him by cleaning up Bikini Bottom in a day. He would struggle with this task, and it doesn't help that the cop follows him around wherever he goes. In order to get rid of all the garbage Squidward collected, SpongeBob would build a statue of Squidward with said garbage, which kinda symbolizes how Bikini Bottom thinks of him. However, this statue would have a huge trick up its sleeve that Squilliam didn't expect.
My glorious statue.
This is your statue?
It was.
Now, this is where I get confused, so I'm gonna ask you guys. Would you say this is a draw because everyone pretty much got ticketed here and neither Squilliam or Squidward received what they wanted? Or would you say that Squidward wins here because his statue destroyed Squilliam's statue? So if that's the last episode of the rivalry, Squilliam's last speaking appearance would be the darkest episode yet. This final episode would completely flip how we've seen Squilliam portrayed so far, that it's kind of eerie that it's the last time that we'd hear his voice in the main show. This requires a bit of context to set up. This episode is called Back to the Past, and it premiered February 15th, 2010. While showcasing their locker of memories, Patrick would activate a time machine that brings them back to a semi-old-timey Bikini Bottom, in which Man Ray is shown attempting to take over the world.
Jumpin' jellyfish, Mermaid Man. What happened to the tartar sauce?
Yes, Patrick, the person who brought everyone to this timeline, would be the reason why this timeline's Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy are not able to defeat this Man Ray. But even more bizarre, he would have enough brain cells to uncharacteristically freak out and grab SpongeBob and go back to the present timeline after not being able to articulate how he was able to go back into the past in the first place, and that's when everything would change forever.
That's more like it. Back in good old present-day Bikini Bottom.
You can easily connect the dots that Patrick eating the tartar sauce led to Man Ray defeating 2 sets of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, which led to this dystopian timeline. You may wonder what this episode has to do with anything besides showing how Patrick's characters had quite the history of duds over the decades. Well, in this new timeline, everyone is enslaved and indebted to their new ruler, Man Ray. Everyone, including Squilliam.
Squilliam?
Man Ray is great.
Yeah. Must be taking care of his community service obligations.
With this last line, that would be the last line Squilliam said in this show. This means our last appearance of Squilliam in a SpongeBob episode that featured lines from him would be an episode that showed a dystopian future where even all of his riches and powers couldn't stop him from bowing down to Man Ray. Now naturally, SpongeBob and Patrick would go back to stop this, however the way they do is quite odd. In a big confusing ending, they'd continuously come back to try to stop things and fail because of Patrick's ability to eat things being as overpowered as it is today and hasn't been nerfed for 1.5 decades, and Man Ray would even try to destroy the time machine at some point, but even that doesn't solve the problem as more SpongeBob and Patrick led time machines are still able to come back to this specific point in this timeline, and all of that confuses the Man Ray of this original timeline, as I'd imagine it would to you as I explain it, but they continue to spawn, even spawning in space with a seemingly infinite time loop of SpongeBob and Patrick's coming back to this timeline. Now what does all this mean? Well, I don't know. I'm not a time travel expert. In fact, in college when I had to choose between classes for time travel and classes for short-term memory loss, I took... Wait, what are we talking about again? So we get to our biggest questions here. What was the episode that sparked this viral discussion in the first place? And is the team intentionally not making plans for Squilliam, or has it just been a giant coincidence? Well, to answer that first question, he appears in several cameos after this, but nothing major. The most recent one at the time of making this video, which sparked this discussion, is Pablum Plankton, an episode that revolves around Plankton being the face of a baby food brand. While Plankton is shopping, we'd see a familiar face in the background.
People usually step on me when I'm shopping. Strange.
It seemed like his rivalry with Squidward was, for the most part, done. And it seems like the crew, despite 15 years of episodes being produced, don't want anything to do with this character. Normally, crew members don't speak up as much about the production of a show, but luckily there is an answer to if the crew has intentionally put Squilliam to the side or if it's a big coincidence. In a hard to find, if not deleted tweet from Vincent Waller, the showrunner of SpongeBob, he directly answered the question of if we were to get Squilliam in seasons 12 or 13. While the allure of developing out Squidward's high school lore, or Squilliam interacting with characters such as Mr. Krabs or SpongeBob more directly do seem like great choices, most of the Squidward-Squilliam episodes largely appear to be the same thing. But I want to hear from you. Do you want to see more Squilliam, or do you think the character has been largely played out? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you want to see more Squidward-centric episodes, definitely check out this video on the best Squidward episode in recent time.